Hello everyone, this is Cobalt. This is the next video in my character analysis series for Brawlhalla. Stick around till the end to hear about entering the giveaway to win community colors, emotes, weapon skins, sidekicks, avatars, or even the battle pass, and voting for the next legends. And if you want to skip all this and get straight into the information, there's a timestamp in the description, and don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up with the release of your favorite legend. In these analyses, I wanted to focus solely on the character's signatures. Light attack combos are covered much more in depth than I ever could elsewhere and function pseudo-comparably for all characters of that weapon class. So I'm not going to be discussing the general neutral of the character with their weapons unless it pertains in some way to their signatures. Firstly, I want to give clear descriptions of the terminology I'll be using. Startup frames are the amount of frames that happen after a move has begun until the first hitbox of the move becomes active. Active frames are the duration of frames that the move contains hitboxes that can collide with your opponent. FAF, or First Actionable Frame, is the first frame available where your character is able to move again after the move has been started. For all of this data, I use the character's jump to display the first actionable frame. Lastly, on miss refers to the move not connecting with an opponent, and on hit refers to the move making contact with an opponent. I'm going to be doing my analysis today on the next voted in legend, Nix. Nix is a Grim Reaper. She was pretty damn good at this, taking some of the more persistent souls back down to Hades. She missed a few targets in Pantheon that she had planned to take, 11 to be exact, that now inhabit Queen Nai, and after hunting them all, she eventually found herself in Valhalla, where she's trying to make a profit off the souls there like the ones of Bodvar, Cross, and Orion. Sorry for the delay in the uploads this week. Had a little bit of Halloween stuff planned, so it is what it is. Nix's weapons are blasters and Scythe. She doesn't see a huge amount of competitive play, but has certainly seen some top-level representation, so she's certainly a threat, just not a very common pick. She's seen good results when she's played, so I think that she's competitively viable. She has 4 attack, 5 dexterity, 7 defense, and 6 speed. I think her stat spread is okay, but it could definitely be better in terms of attack. Drop a point in dexterity and add it to attack, and I think it'd be much better. People spam her SIGs a fair bit, so what's the reason for this? Does she have good frame data and hitboxes, or are people just able to get away with it online? Well, let's find out. Let's start with her blasters. Blaster Side Sig has 19 frames of startup, active frames from 20 to 26 and 37 to 43 with an FAF of 65. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Nix bursts forward with a shot from her blasters and then transitioning into a second. This Sig has average startup and higher than average FAF, so it's pretty punishable on miss based on the frame data. It does have a pretty hefty amount of travel distance though, so can certainly surprise the opponent thanks to its distance coverage, making it a decent burst option or one that people spam quite a bit online. The travel distance can make it harder to punish if you aren't in the proper spacing to do so, and can make it a tad challenging. It's an okay Sig as a punish option thanks to its damage output and knockout potential, and can function well if used after a dodge read. Blaster's neutral Sig has 15 frames of startup, active frames from 16 to 27 with an FAF of 46. It functions differently on miss than it does on hit. Should the move connect, it functions as a command grab with a new FAF of 70. Nix fires a grappling claw from her blaster straight above her into the air. If Nix connects this move, she pulls on the grapple, throwing the opponent plummeting downward. This move has really high knockback and is a popular bait off stage to act as a reverse edgeguard. It's got pretty good startup and FAF. The Sig is really good in my opinion, and thanks to its good frame data, it's got a lot of utility. It catches opponents jumping and trying to recover high above Nix, so it definitely has some solid utility and threat coverage on this move. Blaster's down Sig has 14 frames of startup, active frames from 15 to 17, and 25 to 37 with an FAF of 57. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Nix shoots her grappling claws down through a portal and pulls out several spirits, creating active hitboxes surrounding the portal. This move has pretty low startup and about average FAF. It doesn't have that many active frames as the animation would tend to illustrate, and catches opponents in front of her as well as jumping above her thanks to the high-reaching hitboxes. The Sig is used quite a bit as well. It can additionally offer some niche utility at ledge trapping by extending the hitboxes off stage to catch opponents trying to recover. Next up is her Scythe. Scythe's Side Sig has 24 frames of startup, active frames from 25 to 34 with an FAF of 54. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Nix charges forward with a massive swing from her Scythe. It has a fair bit of startup thanks to its large travel distance. It has slightly below average FAF and an okay amount of active frames. It's good for punishing whiffed attacks at a distance thanks to its range, and yields a good amount of threat coverage. It has a solid amount of knockout potential, and if spaced well, you can out-prioritize a lot of moves thanks to the disjointed hitboxes. The Sig has some pretty specific threat coverage, but threat coverage nonetheless, as a burst option. Scythe neutral Sig has 17 frames of startup, active frames from 18 to 28 with an FAF of 44. It functions differently on miss than it does on hit. Should the move connect, it functions as a command grab with a new FAF of 87. Nix sticks her finger into the air and shoots a small projectile upward with an active hitbox. If this hits the opponent, it locks them in place, and Nix follows up with a large swing from her side, sending the opponent upward. This move has slightly below average startup and pretty good FAF, so it's definitely a useful move, and has comparable threat coverage to her Blaster's neutral Sig, though this Sig is spaced slightly in front of her. Though it does send the opponent upward as opposed to downward, making it slightly less useful, but still offering her some good utility and threat coverage for jumping opponents and those recovering high. Scythe down Sig has 23 frames of startup, active frames from 24 to 28 with an FAF of 59. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Nix remains stationary and swings her Scythe forward with a pretty good disjoint and high knockout potential. It has pretty mediocre frame data though, honestly. It's got slow startup, a high amount of end lag, and very few active frames. It can function pretty well as a punish option, and thanks to its disjoint can out-prioritize approaching opponents. It's not a terrible Sig and has some utility, but it has pretty meh frame data, so I just wouldn't throw this one out in neutral. So overall, her Sigs are about average in terms of their frame data. Her blasters have lower startup than her Scythe Sigs. On both of them, she has about average end lag with the exception of neutral Sigs, which both function as command grabs. Her neutral Sigs, I think, are probably the highlights of her kit both in terms of frame data and in terms of utility. They offer her some good coverage above her, and her side Sig and down Sigs primarily offer her a mixture of coverage at a distance horizontally and immediately in front of her with some subpar frame data. I don't think that her Sigs are terrible, but they aren't blowing me out of the water based on their frame data, despite how much I see them spanned. I think that her neutral Sigs are incredibly useful on her kit and offer her some excellent options out of her light attacks either on blasters or Scythe with the correct dodge read. She's a solid character in my opinion, but in the current meta, blasters and Scythe aren't the best weapons out there. Still really good, but whenever there's cannon, axe, hammer, etc. available, it's a little harder to justify picking her. But maybe we'll see some more competitive results with her in the future. I think she's got potential to do some awesome things, and if there's ever any buffs given to blasters or Scythe, I think that she's going to be one of the first characters that people tend to pick up. Today's code to put down in the comments is Shinigami, along with your Twitter handle, or social media of your preference. And if you get that reference, I appreciate it. Also, check out my Twitch channel. I'll be streaming and playing with viewers after this video goes live, so come by and say hello. Additionally, after I stop streaming, I'll announce the winners for this week. Tune in Monday for coverage on the highest voted legends from this week. Comment to vote for the next week's 5 legends. This is the final video of the week, so I'll distribute the prizes to the winners, and the poll will be closed later this evening, so be sure to get your votes in. I'll be continuing this once a day, Monday through Friday, over the next 10 weeks until all 50 legends are covered. So thanks for joining me on this ride. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the release of your favorite legend, and hope to see you back for the next one. Once again, I'm Cobalt, and thanks for watching.